Ever walk into an antique shop and think, what would it take to run a place like this?
Well, get ready, because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of antique shop management. And let me tell you, it's way more interesting than you might think. We're using this awesome career guide from RoleCatcher, and
It's a good one.
it is. It really gets into the nitty-gritty of what this job is all about.
You're not kidding. It's definitely not your average retail gig, that's for sure.
Right.
I've spent years, helping people figure out their careers, and this one, it always stands out.
Why do you think that is?
It's this amazing mix of, like, business smarts and this real, genuine passion for history.
Yeah.
You gotta have both.
The guide even uses the phrase hidden treasures, which I just love. It's not just about, like, knowing how much something's worth, is it?
Not at all.
It's got to be more than that.
It's the story behind it, right?
Yeah.
It's about understanding its journey through time.
That's so cool.
And that's where the need for, well, the guide calls it business acumen, but,
Being smart about it.
Exactly. You got to be able to run a business, but you also have to have that love for the past.
Right, because otherwise it's just stuff, right?
Exactly.
So the guide highlights how important it is to, like, really know your stuff. Like, appraising antiques, understanding those market trends.
Which can be tricky.
I bet.
Antiques are a fickle market.
Okay, so on top of that, you've got managing staff, making sure customers are happy.
Customer service is huge.
So it's like being a curator, a historian, and an entrepreneur all rolled into one.
You got it.
That's wild. So with all that in mind, what's the appeal? Why would someone want to do this job?
Well, the guide actually mentions flexible working hours as a big plus.
Oh, yeah, that's huge for a lot of people.
Right. Imagine setting your own schedule.
Being your own boss, kind of.
To an extent, yeah.
I like it.
But, there's always a flip side.
What's the catch?
Well, the guide's honest about it. It says there's potential for, making good money.
High profits, even.
Yeah, but it also warns about how unpredictable the income can be.
Okay, so you're not always going to find that rare, super valuable piece.
It's not like the Antiques Roadshow every day.
Huh. I wish. So you're saying you got to be able to roll with the punches a little.
Exactly. You have to be resilient, adaptable, okay with a little risk.
That entrepreneurial spirit the guide talks about, right?
That's the one.
So you have to be okay with uncertainty.
To a degree, yeah. And speaking of adaptable, something else that really jumped out at me from the guide was how much it stressed negotiating.
Oh, interesting.
Marketing, too, and keeping up with all the latest trends in the industry.
Right. You can't just love old stuff, can you?
It's not enough.
You got to be a business person, too.
100%. You've got to be a savvy one, too, because the market for this stuff, it's always changing.
So why is all that extra stuff so important for this particular field?
Well, think about it. What are antiques?
Old stuff.
Right, but the thing is, the value of that old stuff, it can go up and down like crazy.
I bet.
Trends change, What's hot one minute is, well...
Not so hot the next.
Exactly. And you're dealing with a pretty specific type of customer, too.
Not your average Walmart shopper.
You got that right. So you got to be a good negotiator, right?
To get fair prices.
Buying and selling, yeah. And then you need those marketing skills, to bring in the right buyers.
Attract them somehow.
Exactly. Build that loyal customer base.
Word of mouth, all that.
It all matters. And staying on top of the trends.
Yeah, why is that so important?
Well, that's how you know what to look for, what people want, how to make your shop stand out.
Smart. So it's like you're not just running a shop, you're creating an experience.
A journey back in time, almost.
And you've got to figure out how to reach the people who want to go on that journey with you.
That's the key.
And speaking of reaching people, this really surprised me. The guide mentions, get this, e-commerce platforms. Yeah. Social media marketing and even data analytics. And I mean, come on. I never would have pictured those things being important for antique shops.
Right. It's like the oldest profession meeting the newest technology.
Exactly.
But that's the thing these days, isn't it? Technology is changing everything.
True.
Those online tools, they're not just a bonus anymore. They're essential.
Really?
Totally. Think about it. Let's say you're looking for a really specific antique lamp.
Okay.
You could spend days wandering around different shops hoping to get lucky.
Yeah, it would take forever.
Right. Or you could just go online, browse through tons of options from your couch.
So convenient.
Exactly. And that's what those platforms give you.
Reach.
Total reach.
Wow.
They connect buyers and sellers in a way that just wasn't possible before.
So as an antique shop owner, you're not limited to just the people who walk by your store anymore.
Exactly. You've got a global audience.
That's amazing. But it's not enough to just like throw your stuff online, is it?
Definitely not.
You have to know how to actually use these tools, right?
Yeah, you got it.
So is that where the data analytics stuff comes in?
That's a big part of it, yeah.
So what, like spying on people?
Not exactly spying. It's more like understanding what your customers are into,
Oh,
what they're searching for, what catches their eye.
I get it. And then you can tailor your shop to that.
Exactly. And social media.
What about it?
That's where you tell the stories behind the objects, right? You create that connection you can't get from a regular ad.
People love stories.
Everyone does. And it's so cool how these digital tools can bring something as old as the antique trade into the modern age, you know?
Yeah, it's like breathing new life into it.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the skills you need, the challenges, the technology.
Yeah.
But what about the actual career path? Like, how do you actually become an antique shop manager?
Good question. The guide lays out a pretty clear progression, starting with, you guessed it, an entry-level position.
Like a sales assistant.
Bingo.
So that's where you start learning the ropes.
Yeah. Exactly. The guide stresses how important it is to develop a sharp eye for detail.
Like knowing the difference between what's actually old and what's just made to look old.
Exactly. Identifying different types of antiques, understanding their value. It's all part of it.
Wow, I had no idea there was so much to learn.
It's a whole world. And then once you've paid your dues as a sales assistant, you can move up to shop manager.
Which I'm guessing is a whole other ballgame.
You could say that. Yeah,
More responsibility.
definitely. You're not just assisting anymore, you're leading the charge.
Wow, okay, so the guide mentions developing and implementing sales strategies
Big time.
and marketing,
Huh.
managing the staff,
Yep.
even handling the finances.
It's all on you. You're running the show.
So you go from knowing about that one antique teapot.
To managing a whole inventory of them.
Wow. Okay, and then overseeing a staff, making sure the business is profitable.
Exactly. You're responsible for the whole thing.
That's intense. And it doesn't stop there, does it?
The guide actually mentions a senior manager role, too.
What's that like?
That's where you might be overseeing multiple locations,
Wow.
really analyzing those market trends, making big decisions that affect the whole business.
So you could start as a sales assistant, knowing nothing.
Well, you'd learn a lot.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But then you could work your way up to senior manager running several antique shops.
It's a journey, but it shows you there's real potential for growth in this field.
I love that.
It's not just a dead-end job.
Definitely not. Speaking of not dead end, I was really impressed by those AI-powered tools that RoleCatcher offers.
Oh, yeah, those are amazing, especially these days when it feels like everyone's looking for a job.
They can be a big help.
Totally.
Like you can get your resume scored based on a specific job you want.
That's so helpful.
Right. And then there's personalized feedback on your interview skills.
Which can be tough.
Totally. Plus, they give you advice for how to approach different employers.
It's like having your own career coach right in your pocket.
It's pretty incredible.
It really is, especially for something as, well, specialized as antique shop management. Those tools can make all the difference.
I bet. It's like leveling up your job search.
Totally.
Which, let's face it, can be a bit of a nightmare sometimes.
Oh, tell me about it.
But beyond those really cool AI tools, the guide also talks about some more, I guess you call them traditional things that people who want to manage antique shops should be doing.
You're right. Those tried and true methods are still so important, like networking,
Yeah.
building those relationships. Can't underestimate that stuff.
Nope.
Not even a little bit. And the guide really emphasizes that.
Like what, specifically?
Joining those professional groups,
Okay.
getting involved, going to industry events, meeting people.
I bet those be fun.
They can be a blast
Yep.
and so valuable.
You'd meet some characters for sure.
Oh, yeah. You'd hear the best stories.
Imagine being at like a huge antique show, surrounded by all these experts,
Collectors with years of experience.
people who've seen it all. You learn so much from stuff like that.
No doubt.
It's not just about what you know in this business, is it?
Not at all.
It's who you know, too.
100%. Those connections can open doors. You find mentors, maybe even stumble onto job opportunities you never even knew existed.
And let's not forget the hands-on experience. I mean, reading about appraising an antique is one thing, but actually holding it in your hands.
There's no substitute for that.
Right. You'd have to learn how to examine it, all the little details.
Our craftsmanship.
How can you even tell if something's real or fake?
That's the art, isn't it?
Like being a detective.
In a way, it is. You're looking for clues.
Trying to uncover the real story behind each piece.
Peeling back the layers of time.
I love that. I bet that takes years to really get good at, though.
It does. It takes years of practice.
Lots of studying, I'm guessing.
Definitely. And a genuine thirst for knowledge.
Because you can never really know enough about antiques.
Mm-hmm. Right. The guide makes a good point about that. It says the antique world is constantly changing.
Really. I think it'd be pretty set in its ways, you know?
You'd think so, but no.
Huh.
New discoveries pop up all the time. Trends come and go.
Wow, okay.
So you've really got to stay on top of it all if you want to be successful.
That's wild. So it's not just about preserving the past then, is it?
What do you mean?
It's also about figuring out how it all fits in with the present and even the future.
That's a really interesting way to put it.
Right. You've got to be able to tell an object's story in a way that speaks to people today.
Especially if you're using those digital tools we were talking about earlier, you've got to find a way to bridge that gap.
Totally. Between
Yeah.
the old and the new.
That's the sweet spot.
That's so cool.
It really is. It's what makes this whole field so fascinating.
Yeah, I'm starting to get that.
You're taking something with centuries of history behind it
Yeah,
and finding a way to make it relevant to a modern audience. That's amazing.
it is. You know, before we move on, I wanted to circle back to something the guide mentioned earlier,
What's that?
the whole customer service thing.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's important for any kind of job where you're
Yeah.
dealing with customers,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
But in the antique world, it seems like it takes on a whole new level of importance.
You're not wrong.
What do you think is so different about it in this field?
Well, you're not just selling someone like a new TV, you know?
No, definitely not.
You're selling them something that has history. It's got a past.
Sometimes it's a very long past.
Exactly. And people who are into antiques, they get really passionate about this stuff. It means something to them.
So you have to be sensitive to that.
100%. It's about building relationships, creating that trust, understanding the passion that drives these collectors.
Because it's not just a business transaction for them, is it?
Not really, no. For a lot of antique enthusiasts, it's about connecting with a piece of the past.
Owning a little piece of history.
Exactly. And a good antique shop manager, they get that. They take the time to listen to their customers to understand what they're really looking for.
It's like you said, building that connection.
Exactly. Sharing your knowledge, helping them find that hidden treasure, that special something they've been searching for.
I bet that's really rewarding, actually.
It can be, but it's not always easy.
What do you mean?
Well, remember the guide mentioned those difficult customers.
Oh, right. Don't tell me everyone who walks into an antique shop is a delight.
Huh.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Well,
But you're dealing with valuable stuff, fragile stuff.
true.
And you've got to negotiate those prices, manage expectations.
Right.
And sometimes you're dealing with people who have a lot of emotions tied up in these objects.
That's going to be tricky to navigate.
Right.
So you're not just a salesperson then. You're a historian, a therapist,
A diplomat, definitely.
and a detective, remember? We talked about that.
That's right. It's a lot to juggle.
It really is. Makes you realize there's so much more to this job than meets the eye. Exactly. You walk into an antique shop and you see all this cool stuff, but there's a whole lot going on behind the scenes that you don't even think about.
Totally. And it all comes down to the person running the show, doesn't it?
The antique shop manager, yeah. They're the ones who bring it all together.
So they're not just curating a bunch of old objects.
They're creating an experience.
A connection to the past.
And they're doing it while running a business, keeping up with the market, and embracing new technologies.
It's amazing how much goes into it. It really is. But there's more to it, isn't there?
There's always more. What are you thinking?
Well, we've talked about the business side, the tech side. But what about the ethics of it all?
You're talking about the responsibility that comes with handling these pieces of the past.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a whole other layer, isn't it? And the guide definitely touches on that. It stresses how important authenticity is in this business.
Making sure you're not selling someone a fake.
Exactly. Got to be able to spot those. But it's also about understanding where a piece came from, its history.
It's provenance, right?
That's it. And being upfront with your customers about all of that.
So no shady backroom deals or anything.
Huh. Well, hopefully not. Transparency is key.
Right, because it's more than just a business, isn't it?
What do you mean?
It's like you're a steward of the past in a way. You're preserving it, making sure these objects and their stories get passed on.
That's a great way to put it. You're entrusted with these pieces of history. And the guide even takes it a step further, talking about how sustainability is becoming a big deal in the antique world.
Really? Sustainability? I never would have thought of that. I mean, it's literally old stuff. How does that work?
Well, think about it. When was the last time you saw an antique that was made of plastic?
Good point.
Antiques are like the ultimate recycled goods. Back then, things were made to last, built to be repaired, passed down through
Not
generations.
like today, where everything's disposable.
Exactly. And now, antique shops are really leaning into that whole idea. They're using eco-friendly packaging, promoting that slow consumption thing.
So it's not just about preserving the objects from the past, it's about bringing back some of those values.
Exactly. Appreciating craftsmanship, investing in quality over quantity. It's a powerful message, especially these days.
Totally. It's like, instead of buying some mass-produced thing that'll break in a year, find something unique, something with a story, something that'll last.
And it's already lasted this long, so it must be good.
Yeah, it's one way to look at it. Okay, so to wrap things up here, it sounds like being an antique shop manager is, wow, it's a lot more than I ever realized.
Right. We've covered a lot of ground here.
It's like you need to be a historian, a business person, a curator, a diplomat, even a detective, like we talked
Sure.
about.
Don't forget therapist.
Oh, yeah. And now, on top of everything else, a sustainability advocate. Who knew?
It's a pretty amazing mix, isn't it?
It really is. So for anyone listening who might be thinking about a career change, or maybe just has a passion for antiques,
Maybe you got a house full of them.
maybe. This deep dive has hopefully given you a whole new appreciation for what goes on behind the scenes at your local antique shop,
And hey, you never know, maybe it sparked an idea for a new career path.
or at least a fun weekend trip.
There you go.
Until next time.